Here we go. 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Loot Bros Cross Godfo Universe podcast.
Hey, hey.
I'm your host, Resident Darrell. I got Dan Evans, my boy, back in the sack. What's up?
What up, buddy?
Is back in the sack sexual? Should I not say that?
Probably should have said back in the saddle.
Back in the saddle, huh? That sounds like
That sounds manly
probably
until
sexual too.
until Brokeback Mountain ruined it.
Cowboys were cool until then, yeah. Hey, Dan, I don't know if you can turn your gain up, but we could use a little bit more
Yeah.
of Mr. Evans.
I don't know about that.
There you go.
There you go.
Probably
A little bit better.
Some fat beats in the background, weren't you? All right. There you go. So I'm recording a little bit of video. You're obviously recording video. You always record the video for us. So what I'm going to do is this episode is going to go on the YouTube channel for sure, because I'm telling you the story. This is how we're starting off our time. We're going to talk favorite PS2 games, but that's not why everybody's here. They're here for this story right here that I'm about to share with you. So check it out. My son, second grade, he in the first grade made a puppet. Okay, so what they did for school was the teachers took a picture of the child, all right, and made a little cutout and attached it to some sort of brown paper bag so that they could make it move and talk or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Said cutout of the child is then taped with its hands around the bag somehow. I don't understand how it worked because I never saw it completed. All I saw was this. My wife is a minimalist, okay? And so we don't have a ton of stuff on our walls. We don't have a ton of stuff in our house. Like, my video game collection is considered hoarding to her. Like, she doesn't keep stuff, right? And so the kids' stuff she'll keep for a very short amount of time in certain areas, and then she throws them in the, quote, special bin.
Which is the trash can.
Exactly. So what she did was she threw away said puppet. And my son saw it in the special bin and was like, no, you can't do this. I made this for you. And she goes, but look, baby, it's ripped. And she had ripped the puppet so that if a kid saw the special bin,
she's
they wouldn't get mad.
She's thinking 3 steps ahead.
Yes, exactly. The problem is he wasn't having it. So he saved his puppet. Okay. I found said puppet, and it is one of the most disturbing looking things I have ever seen in my life, Dan, because his arms are ripped off.
Yeah.
So it's a picture of my child with cartoon nubby arms. And the picture of his face, you could tell the teacher was like, all right, smile. And he's like, eh. So this is the puppet. Look at that. Look at these little strong hands. Take a strong hand, Dan. Take a strong hand. So look at that face. Like, he's trying, but it just... So check it out. What I do in this house is I hide behind the wall, I hide behind the bed, I hide behind bathrooms, and I go, I make this really high-pitched screech, and it scares my family to death. So out of nowhere, watch the camera, it's like,
What you should do is make one of you.
Look at that. Look at the arms.
And then make one of her.
Dude. And what's really funny is sometimes I'll make the bed and I'll have the comforter over the pillow.
Yeah.
And then when she pulls her end back, this is laying on her pillow. And it's like,
she's going to remember all of this.
It's so funny because, like, it's a big deal in the house. Sometimes I'll hide 20, 30 minutes in a specific spot just to get the old...
And yet your ceiling isn't fixed.
I ain't got time to fix
you should
it.
Just You should just make a bunch of those and patch it up with that.
Oh my gosh! Just tape them to the ceiling. And then whenever the tape falls, it's like, oh my gosh! So yes, here we go. Loot Bros Godfo. We're at it again. And the nonsense has already ensued. I just saw it, right? So my daughter, and I was sitting on the recliner the other day, and my daughter goes up to the window. And the window right here in my office is like one of those like French door looking windows. It's got like the panes in it or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's like a little bit of a wall, and that's where the basement's at, on just on the back side of the wall, well, the entrance, anyways. So she hid over there outside my door the other night and was like,
How did your son
And-
feel about it?
oh, he thinks it's hilarious. He thinks this is the funniest thing ever. Actually, it's annoying because I have taken, this is my instrument of joy
Yeah.
in the house, and I was like, you guys quit touching my puppet. This is what this is daddy's. This is mine. And so they have it all the time. So no joke, I came in my office this morning. Guess what was laying out on my desk? The puppet. So I have SC Horror Con's flyer. It's just sitting over here. I'm like, that's pretty ominous. That's pretty awesome. So when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, when we record, I gotta show Dan this. He'll appreciate
You're
this.
gonna have that like on your deathbed. When your son comes close, you're just gonna pull it out from under the cover.
Take my strong hand, Dan. Take my strong hand. Sorry.
You're gonna start comparing your son to that thing. You're gonna start photoshopping him out of the pictures and putting that in.
Take my strong hand, child. I love the little like.
Yeah.
I love it. So yeah, I saw that on my desk. I was like, well, saving that for Dan. He'll appreciate it.
I can't wait till like my kids are old enough to do that kind of stuff. But like my oldest is a girl, so she probably won't have that kind of sense of humor. Probably like,
I don't know, man. My daughter does. She's freaking hilarious. Jump scares and just puns, and oh my gosh, we were out on a daddy-daughter date the other night. We bought a book of puns, of bad puns.
Yeah.
Freaking loved it. Just, it's so funny. It's so funny because we just finished The Last of Us, and Ellie from the game has the book of puns, and she finds them in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then my daughter and I, shortly after that episode aired, went to Five Below, and they've got a book of puns there. So
That's funny.
bought it for her. So yeah, but my daughter doesn't look like a mole human, unlike Bella Ramsey.
Oh man, yeah, that poor girl. You think Hollywood could have done something with her before putting her back on screen? Because like in Game of Thrones, she looked fine because she was like a little kid, so it's like, okay, who cares?
Yeah.
And then like in this, she's like, ooh, like it's bad when a game looks better than you.
What's funny is for the Loot Bros Patreon, myself and the host of the Trivia Horse podcast, Tricky Mick, we've done weekly deep dives of every episode. And so it's become a common theme for me to make fun of Bella Ramsey's face on the podcast.
You calling her Bell's palsy, Ramsey?
Oh no. That's terrible. Bella palsy. That's awful. That's terrible. I'm like, look. I understand what it's like to be a unattractive human being.
Oh yeah,
so I can speak on it. I can speak on this. Is my field of expertise, right? Like I've got a face for radio. So when I look at Bella Ramsey, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, it's just a little. She's just a little off. It's just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Something's just not quite there, and you feel so bad because she's talented, and she's a person, but you're still like, okay, maybe you're not Hollywood pretty.
No. Hey, oh my gosh, that's funny. I made a joke to my wife. I said, I remember back in the day when like you had to be pretty to be on TV and you couldn't be fat to be on TV. I was like, I'm ready to go back to that.
Unless you were funny.
Ugly people.
Unless you were funny.
Well, that's true. Yeah. But I told her, I said, man, I'm getting tired of looking at all these fat, ugly people.
Yeah, like, I can do that in the mirror. Like, I can do that in the mirror.
I said, I turned to Hollywood for pretty people.
That's the thing is people always like, well, you couldn't do it. It's like, yeah, that's why I'm not doing it. Like,
I know. I don't watch Predator.
Yeah.
For somebody like me, like I want to see like a steroid-ridden monster of a human being with a giant gun
fighting a human being monster.
Yeah, like could you imagine if 2023's Predator comes out and it's like, oh, he's the fat trans predator from his planet coming down here.
Plot twist: all the predators are Christians.
Yeah, we send our predators out there, but they're the wrong kind.
I didn't mind
That's terrible.
I didn't finish it though, so maybe I shouldn't say that. The new Predator that came out was called Prey.
That was really good.
Yeah, I liked it better in the Comanche language. It felt like a better movie, but I didn't finish it because I'm like, oh, she's gonna win somehow. This 90-pound, 5'2" girl is.
It was
gonna
cool.
win. So more power to her.
I thought the way they did it was good. I thought it was, again, and this is what I tell people all the time. Like, coming from you have to take in the culture of what's happening around you all the time. With today's films, it doesn't. I'm sure it was the same way back in the '80s, but like growing up, not understanding the cultural relevance and like what was being pushed, it just seemed like this is the standard. You know what I'm saying? Like pretty people on TV, muscle bound dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like not fat ladies. That's just what we got.
It's like a grocery item of the non-fat ladies. What about 2%?
Now we got the whole milk lady.
No, whole milk would be like would be like
the whole milk lady.
Whole milk would be like thunder thighs, like childbearing hips, and she like also works on a farm.
Oh my god! so Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, yeah, Dukes of Hazzard. Whole milk.
Now we got all the Diet Coke dudes on TV. You know what I'm saying? Like it ain't the same. So, anyways, my point is, when you take the cultural landscape and the way things feel like they're being pushed and presented, as soon as I saw the Prey movie, my first thought was, okay, here it comes. We're gonna get the younger, like I said, 100 pounds soaking wet girl who's gonna best this monster. You know what I'm saying? And I know what we're getting with this. And there's even a scene where they kind of get a little on the nose with it. And they're like, you're a woman, you can't be a hunter. And she was like, I can, whatever. I don't know. There was some very on the nose writing, and it was like a little bit of, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But they did. I mean, the writing, the way it all played out outside of that one scene was very tasteful. It was very good. And I do like the fact that my daughter can watch the Prey movie and be like, yeah, that's right. I mean, Zoe, you can't kill that thing. So like, but watching someone,
she's like, Dad, you can't either.
Size, I'll take away my hopes and dreams. I saw Arnold do it. I can do it.
Yeah, that's a great way to live your life. Arnold did it. I can do it.
He became the governor too. So I can do that.
He moved to a completely different country and ruled one of their states.
That's right. He became the governor.
What's funny is we were watching Prey. My wife got mad because every time the girl was on screen, I just called her Squaw. Like, every time she would talk, I'd say, "Shut up, Squaw."
That's terrible, dude. It's so funny because my wife and I we watched it together, and my wife doesn't watch stuff like that.
Yeah,
but she thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thought it was a great movie. So I highly recommend.
Yeah,
go back into it, watch it. It was a good one, and it is proof that in today's age we can get new films that are well written, minus that one line, and well acted and well portrayed. Everything was great. It was awesome. I didn't feel any kind of way afterwards, other than I was like, dude, do more of that. Not to mention. That particular franchise feels like it can't get a win. Yeah. Like the past several movies have sucked so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, speak of the devil, and she will appear.
Yeah, I'm getting interrupted. Hey. But our original goal was what, PlayStation 2 games?
Yeah, that's what we're actually here for.
Well, I just scored a PlayStation 2 off eBay about 2 weeks ago. So and I found my current roster of games is Rygar, which is one of my favorites. It's a remake from the NES. And on the PlayStation 2, it's actually a precursor to God of War. It actually used that button combat system before God of War did. And he swings like a giant shield, like a Spartan shield that's like on a chain. So even the combat feels very pre-God of War. But anyway, that's a personal favorite of mine. Metal Gear Solid 2, you gotta have that. Final Fantasy X, which that and 7 are the only ones I've actually really liked to play. And that one's like big nostalgia bait for me. Like I love the colors. And then Armored Core 2, which is my favorite video game, probably top 2 or 3 ever made. I'm a big mech guy, and the Armored Core series are fantastic. So that's where I'm at right now. Now, if we want to talk like throughout time, I'll just go ahead and start. The first PlayStation 2 game I bought when it first came out, when it was like what, $200-300, and it played DVDs or whatever, was Tekken Tag Tournament. And
that's a good one.
I unlocked every single character. I even got a 300 bowling game on Tekken Bowling you could unlock in there, because that's the only way. I think that was the only way you could get Gon / Roger. I think that was it. But I remember I had every single character unlocked, and yeah, I put so many hours on that game. But
heck yeah, dude.
I don't. Here's how I classify like systems. Like you get the NES, the SNES, the 64. Nintendo's always hitting it out of the park. But something, even the 64, of course, is still fantastic. I still got mine. I was playing GoldenEye the other day. But something about the PlayStation 2 to me is like the first non-Nintendo system that was truly fantastic. Like, and changed the trajectory for that entire company. Because the PlayStation 1 was, it wasn't bad. But the PS2, man, yeah. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Heck yeah. Well, then I'll just give like a kind of a brief overview of some of my favorites, not really going into any kind of order, but whenever when you sent me that screen grab of you winning the PS2 and all that stuff, I was like, oh man, that's the next thing we got to talk about is PS2, because there's so many games that I loved, and I spent so much time on the PS2. Like one of the systems that probably have the most time of my life sunk into, and it came out at a perfect time for me, right at that that end of high school, college, time or whatever. And I remember one of the games that sticks out the absolute most, it was Grand Theft Auto 3.
I was about to say that, and then San Andreas,
Yes, San Andreas, Vice City. But see, Grand Theft Auto 3, when it came out, me and a group of my buddies were going to church together every Wednesday night. And
great precursor for a Grand Theft Auto story.
This is really going to tell you everything you need to know about me. Okay, so I would ride home from school with my buddy Marcus after school. We would go straight to church, or we'd eat. We had football practice, stuff like that. So we had football practice after school. We would eat, change, and then we'd go to the Wednesday night service. After Wednesday night service, me, Marcus, my buddy Richard, and anyone else that came with us, because we were always inviting our friends with us.
Yeah.
But we went to his pool room, and one second, and he had a pool table and a TV in the corner and his PS2. And so we would go over there and we would play Grand Theft Auto 3. And we would oh good. And we would play like Grand Theft Auto 3 and just take turns running through the city, not even really doing missions, but more so just beating up people on the side of the road and listening to the wild things that they say. And I remember one specific memory where, well, first off, there was always the first time you find out that you can pick up a woman of the night.
Yeah.
And then that whole thing, right? So that blew our minds that even was in a video game. Okay. But I remember my buddy Richard, I think it was Richard, running around hitting people with baseball bats. And we're like, what are you doing? You're a monster. And you could, of course, kill people, take their money and stuff. And then there was this old lady walking in the side of the road, and he whopped her. And I don't know why that was so funny. That's because we never imagined that was possible in a video game. But he whopped this old granny. And we fell out of our chairs. Like it was the funniest freaking thing ever.
Yeah.
So it looks like we got OSHA in there inspecting the room, making sure everything's on the up and up.
All right, hold on. What do you need?
You're good, dude. You're good.
There, with mine up over there. I'm gonna have to like black out that entire screen like during that, right? So for those who actually see this on my end, there was a wombat that came in and rummaged through the room.
It's so funny because your face is telling this whole story while I'm talking.
Yeah.
I'm watching you react to all the action in the background. And I get that. I feel everything that you're portraying emotion-wise, because like it seems like the only time anyone wants anything to do with me in this room is when I hit record.
Yep. Speaking of bats. But no, yeah, that was like the first, I don't want to say open world, but it's the first game to like feel open world where it's like, oh, I can do anything.
Literally.
The cops may show up, but who cares?
Oh my gosh. The fact that like you could have these interactions with cops and outrun the cops, and it would be a thing where we would come up with these really arbitrary rules on how to switch the controller around. It wasn't even about beating the game.
No, I never beat them.
I beat a few of them. But it would be, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, get a 5-star rating or a 3-star rating or whatever, whoever lasts the longest.
Yeah.
I mean, and we would spend hours. We'd be up till 2 o'clock in the morning, dude, playing Grand Theft Auto 3, having to get up for school 3 hours later, 4 hours later. And it was awesome. Like, we had so much fun. Then that wasn't like my favorite PS2 game, but that game and that series just garnered so many strong and just fun memories.
Yeah.
So,
well, it was
awesome.
It was the first kind of feeling adult game system. Like, it was the first to really lean into that, like lean into things like Grand Theft Auto. Like I said, the PlayStation 1 kind of tried to, but they couldn't really score all those games they needed. They didn't really have the processing power they needed, and it was grossly overpriced when it first came out. But I mean, you look at it, it's like it's like this solid black rectangle. It looks like the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey. And it just had banger after banger. I mean, it had a really long shelf life. It felt like, because I remember we'd had it for years when like Prince of Persia came out. Yeah. And stuff like that. I mean, and of course one of the big ones is Metal Gear Solid 2, because I mean Metal Gear Solid was a hit on the PlayStation, which is one of the hits it had. But then I don't know, they just kept it was exciting. I was a Nintendo fanboy growing up, and not trying to beat this point to death, but it just felt like finally there was a competitor, because Sega tried to compete with Nintendo on their own terms and lost, because you can't do that. And then PlayStation kind of came out and was like, they're the MTV of game consoles at the time.
So for me, I was the Sega, then the PlayStation kid.
Yeah.
So for me, I was a huge PS1 guy. Like, this was like, PS1 was just my favorite thing. I played Nintendo, and outside the Nintendo 64, Nintendo was never really like a big sticking point for me. The N64 is about the only time in my life that Nintendo was kind of like a real force to be reckoned with. But games like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Parasite Eve, Dino Crisis, Final Fantasy, those kind of kept me in the PlayStation ecosystem in the earlier years. So coming off of the PS1 into the PS2, it was like, here's all these things that I really like, but then turned up to 11.
Oh, yeah.
And then getting games like Grand Theft Auto and God of War.
Devil May Cry.
Devil May Cry. That was another one. That's where I was getting ready to go. Hang on one second. And then laughed so much I done coughed up a lung. But Devil May Cry was absolutely just phenomenal. And the control that you had in Devil May Cry, it felt so revolutionary. It felt like dual wielding pistols, and juggling enemies in the air based on your action. It was like, I've never experienced anything this fast, this fluid, and this fun.
Yeah.
And then to know that this came from the team that made Resident Evil, I was like, this right here, next level. So then going into the Devil May Cry games, I was just hooked. And I have another crazy, just awesome memory. My church, that I
you're like, I killed so many people at church.
Grand Theft Auto, church, Devil May Cry. All right, so the church that I later started attending and ended up actually becoming one of the pastors at, that way down the road. But I started to go visit my wife here, and we would go together and we got involved in this program called Judgment House. And essentially,
I know what that
for
is.
anyone, anyone who's listening, Judgment House is you turn your building into a giant play that visitors can then walk through, and it's kind of like an alternative to a haunted house. Instead of going in there for cheap scares, you go in there for a story. All right, each room decorated and acted out by a different group of people, portraying three characters. There's a character who accepts Christ and goes to heaven. There's a character that denies Christ and goes to hell. And then there's the character that never makes a definitive decision either way. And you see how these stories play out. All of them have some sort of tragic episode, whether it be a car crash or a whatever. I don't even remember. I feel like we did car crashes all the time.
Yeah, there was a lot of those.
Whatever. A lot of car crashes. I almost said school shooting, but I actually don't remember if we ever did one that was a school shooting. I think there was an actual shooting at a park or something like that. Or anyways.
Yeah.
We did something to where these three students would die every time. Different students every year, of course, because they're dead. And then we would act it out from room to room. So the way that I got involved is I was asked to act in one of these scenes. They needed an angry teenager that didn't want to do anything but play video games.
You're like, hey, all right. Bingo.
I can nail that. I can nail that role. I mean, I might have to dig real deep into my repertoire.
Do you have room for a guy who hates himself and watches anime?
Yeah, we can definitely tell where that kid's going. So I go into this church, and they give me this room. They're like, yeah, set up your PlayStation. I put posters on the wall. I had a Resident Evil 1, the HD remake for the GameCube. I had that poster on the wall. And I played Devil May Cry 2.
Yeah.
On the PS2. That's what I played. And I would play, so basically in between scenes when it wasn't my turn, I'm playing Devil May Cry. And then in the scenes, I'm playing Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
And I have to shoot some stuff, do some things. I have to pause the game, get mad, throw my controller down on the bed.
Dang it, Mom.
Say a bunch of, dang it. But yeah, I hate you. You don't love me. Whatever. Anyways, and I have to storm out of the room.
Yeah.
And then whenever the crowd leaves, I go back into my room, play video games until the next scene. It was seriously amazing. So PlayStation 2, man, I've got like just loads of stories where like me and games and church all cross paths.
If we're talking favorites, there was a game called Gungrave. Do you remember that?
I know what you're talking about. I never played it.
It was kind of like it kind of felt like a prototype to Devil May Cry. I don't know if it came out before or after, but it was super smooth, unbelievably short though. You could beat it in like 2 hours in an afternoon. And I loved it. You were like this reanimated corpse guy that had like two huge guns, and he also carried his coffin on his back with a chain around him, and you could like swing that and hit people with it too. And man, for some reason, I loved that. It was like it would give you a headache because you'd sit there and you'd play it. You'd be so focused on how cool it was and all the bright flashes. I'd play it like every Sunday afternoon and beat it like before I had to go to church. And
PS2 in church, man. That thing was recruiting.
Shadow of the Colossus. I think.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I still think that game is unmatched in what they did with it. The way that guy. I forget that guy in that studio. I forget their names, but they were they were really good at making those kind of like stoic character games where the entire story unfolds without dialogue. And because they made Eco or whatever, the boy with the horns or whatever, and that one was good too. I just sucked at it, but I think Shadow of the Colossus is one of the very few untouched, unmatched art games ever. It's so perfect. It's so good. Like it gives you a sword and it says, "Here, go kill Colossuses," and then the story unfolds while you do it. Because I hate cutscenes and I hate dialogue, but I loved watching all of that and playing it.
Man, that's crazy. How'd you play any Metal Gear games?
I'd skip it, or I'd go make a sandwich during it or something. Because when we got to like 4 or 5, I was done. I was so done with those cutscenes. Like I am not watching. I'm not watching Brown Badger talk to me for 2 hours about the history of American psyops, whatever their name was.
Metal Gear. Love it, dude. I love it.
I do have a great
I
Metal
love it,
Gear
dude.
Solid, Metal Gear Solid story, which is it's my brother's story. If he were here to tell you, instead of fighting Sniper Wolf, because she's in the bunker and you're supposed to be in the snow and you're supposed to have a sniper battle with her. He didn't know it would work, but he just pulled out the rocket launcher and shot the bunker, and it killed her. Like the entire boss fight, her life just went.
Dude, that's the best thing, man. Is like the fact that there's so many ways to do things in the Metal Gear games.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So, speaking of Metal Gear, you mentioned Metal Gear Solid 2, man. And Metal Gear Solid 2, I remember getting that game, sitting down with my brother. We put it on the TV. We put it in. We're like, all right, dude, Metal Gear Solid on the PS1 was one of my favorite experiences. It was so incredibly good. It was one of those games that my dad just randomly bought for us.
Yeah.
And we had no clue what it is.
He said, it's got metal in it. Here you go.
Yeah. You angry little nerds. I bet you'll like this. But it had 2 discs. So we're like, oh, this is clearly going to be good if it's got 2 discs. We played the game, and it was amazing. So then when Metal Gear Solid 2 came out, we're like, yes,
this better come with 4 discs.
That's right. It's a DVD player. It doesn't even need that many discs. So we get in there, we load it up, we start playing. We're like, who's this Raiden character? Why is he naked?
Yeah, why am I playing as him? I want to play a snake.
Why am I running around holding my pee-pee trying to be quiet?
Doing cartwheels.
Doing